Margery Kempe was an English woman who lived in 14th to 15th century England. Commonly labelled as a mystic, her fascinating life is documented in the Book of Margery Kempe. Indeed, fascinated by this personality, Philip Repington, Bishop of Lincoln, visited her in 1413. When she shared with him her revelations, he was right glad to hear him, counselling her sadly that her feelings should be written. At the time, there were no vernacular texts by English women mystics circulating in England. Critic Alexandra Barratt argues that Repington, a Latinic cleric, may have made this suggestion because she must have seemed a homegrown variety of a species of a well-documented type he was certainly familiar with, the European woman mystic. In the Middle Ages, there was a tradition of women visionaries on the continent. The rise of the Beguines in Western Europe also created communities of holy women who gradually gained international fame. Some inspired Margery, including Mary of Wagny, Bridget of Sweden, Hildegard of Bingen, Elizabeth of Hungary, and Catherine of Siena. We'll come back to these women later. But first, back to Repington. He motivated her to have her life written. He didn't ask her to write it herself. Margery was supposed to be illiterate, so she hired 2 scribes to record her narration. The text is complicated by the lack of a single identifiable author, but post-structuralist theory teaches us that we are never autonomous beings anyway. We are all subjects constituted by multiple ideological discourses and subject positions inflected by class. In short, the self is always shaped by society. The process of documenting the self in the book allows Kempe to examine the socio-cultural contexts that shaped her subject, to become more mindful of why she is the way she is. Far from conceding the self to other authorial forces, it is an audacious act of self-realization. Why does Margery copy European women saints and mystics? First and foremost, for all the reasons people subscribe to religion. These women are guaranteed a place in heaven. They are, by doctrinal definitions, good people, and that satisfies the conscience. Translations of hagiographies about European women saints were in high circulation in England and retold as spiritual guides for laypeople in sermons. Margery would have been taught to be like them, and quite possibly wanted what they had too. Living in Bishop's Lynn on the east coast, an international port to the Baltic, Scandinavia and Flanders, Margery could travel and rub shoulders with foreigners more easily. Flanders was precisely the birthplace of the Beguine movement, while one of Margery's models, St. Bridget, was from Sweden. Barratt notes at the time, England was culturally subservient to France and spiritually dependent on Rome. The very image of a sophisticated holy woman in medieval Christianity was cosmopolitan in a pan-European sense. Then, there are all the reasons that people want to be famous. The medievalist Clarissa W. Atkinson states that holy persons were the celebrities of the Middle Ages. Conversely, cultural sociologist Richard Howell says that we make saints of our celebrities today. Quoting both of these scholars, Alicia Spencer Hall reframes Margery's story in the world of celebrity and fan culture. Hagiographers, writers of saints' lives, are fans of holy women who are celebrities. And going further, Margery is a fame-hungry fan, a wannabe desperate to transform herself into a celebrity saint in her own right. She co-opts the established celebrity to legitimize her own forms of piety. That is why scholars have pushed for classifying the book as an auto-hagiography instead. It is a self-authenticating text where the subject defies the conventional prerequisite for an external authenticator and attempts to verify their own sanctity. Most provocatively, Spencer Hall likens Margery to Kim Kardashian. 1. They are reality TV famous rather than the products of traditional celebrity manufacturing process, as Margery was not scouted by hagiographers like Jacques de Vitry. 2. They leech off traditional celebrities for their own celebrification. Kim started out as Paris Hilton's assistant and has since eclipsed her notoriety. Margery also has ambitions of surpassing St. Bridget in fame. Fame brings you power. Bridget of Sweden, for one, established her own Brigittine religious order. It gave her leverage to criticize the papacy. Julian of Norwich, one of the few homegrown mystics in England, was mentioned in many wills. People left her money. These are all reasons for which Margery might want to be famous. How does Margery model herself after European holy women to achieve this fame? And how does she add her own twist to realize her notoriety? Number 1. Pilgrimage. Margery was inspired by St. Bridget's revelations to travel. Coming from a middle-class background, she certainly had the means to. She's been to the Holy Land, Rome, Venice, Santiago de Compostela in Galicia, the Holy Blood of Wilsnack, possibly via Sweden. Much like modern-day influencers, she is keen to tick off a bucket list of pilgrimage destinations. Number 2. Making a spectacle of herself. Margery is a personality. Loud and shameless, she screams in mass and cries in public. Spencer Hall writes that Margery's incessant weeping is the example of Kim K's ugly crying meme, a metonym for the variety of ways in which they are always making a spectacle of themselves. Although this annoys the public, her non-stop crying seems to give her legitimacy as a holy woman. Marie of Oigny and Elizabeth of Hungary were both blessed by this extraordinary gift of tears, and it is precisely upon hearing these stories that the scribe's faith in Margery is restored. Apart from being loud, Margery loves to make a statement with her fashion. While Hildegard of Bingen dressed herself in rags, she only wore white. This immediately evokes associations with depictions of Virgin Mary, plus, in this period, only cloistered virgins were permitted to wear all white. Margery was a married mother of 14. She even picks occasions to flaunt this apparent fashion faux pas. For example, when she went up to receive communion on Trinity Sunday, which attracted much ridicule from the residents of Lynn. Through clothing, Margery appropriates ecclesiastical iconography and makes herself a display of it. Much like modern celebrities who use fashion to brand themselves, she makes herself an actual model of chastity in a very visual sense, almost treating herself as a text into which narratives of sainthood can be written, if not forced. Number 3. Food. Food offers many modes of control for medieval women. For one, like Dorothy of Montagu, Margery would cook badly to avoid her prescribed household duties as a wife. Between the 12th and 16th centuries, some religious women who resided in the houses of fathers or spouses renounced the world by refusing to eat or drink anything that was paid for by family wealth. Catherine of Siena rebelled against her mother by refusing to eat. Mary of Oigny and Catherine of Genoa fasted to convince husbands to live lives of chastity and charity. Similarly, Margery agreed to stop her public fasting, which embarrassed her husband John, in return for sexual continence. Again, she makes a spectacle of herself to realize the chaste life and image she wants. In all of the ways above, Margery doesn't just copy other saints faithfully. Of course, she cannot perform the same miracles that verify their sainthood, so where she can imitate them in a human way, she makes it a public performance, exaggerating it to the point of being squarely outlandish. She is all of them and none of them at once, and just like that, difference is constructed and the self is realized. Nowhere is Margery more outlandish than in her visions. Her encounters with Christ uncomfortably straddle the sexual and the motherly. Christ says to her, "When thou art in thy bed, take me to thee as thy wedded husband and as thy sweet son. Therefore thou mayst boldly take me in the arms of thy soul, and kiss my mouth, my head, and my feet, as sweetly as thou wilt." Like Ida of Louvain, she envisions herself suckling him in the role of Mary. She is so intensely attracted to Christ's maleness that she weeps every time she sees a male baby. She also imagines herself as a midwife at the Nativity and in other personal interactions with Mary, such as making her a drink when she is distressed. Using Spencer Hall's analogy, Margery likes to hang out with A-listers. Her desire for intimate relationships with Christ and the Virgin seems to stem from a keenness for competition, specifically with Bridget of Sweden. In Rome, she goes out of her way to meet people who remember St. Bridget, including her former maidservant. She even visits the room in which she died, showing a clear obsession with this woman. This brings the uneasiness in Spencer Hall's argument to the fore, that celebrity and saint worship often comes with this intrusive insertion of the self into the psyches of others. In chapter 20, though, Christ confirmed to Margery, "My daughter Bride say me never in this wise. I never talk to my daughter Bridget in this way." This verifies to her delight that she has surpassed her model and got the guy. Even though Margery had all these role models, she is a bit of a wild one. As we've seen from her visions, she's not scared of a sex scandal. In chapter 4 of her book, she already talks about how she was at one point tempted by adultery. Her strange behavior in public has led to multiple arrests for heresy, although some people think she's just attention-seeking. For example, 2 priests tried to test if she only cried and wept in the sight of the people.
What's wrong with her? She's a woman, isn't she?
Gossip about her has even spread to the capital as she hears people criticizing her and priests preaching against her in London.
I think that's how I was definitely introduced to the world, so I'd like to think that I'm, aware. I'm not naive to that fact.
To be redeemed, revered, and most of all, remembered. Without material, textual records, an individual's life could just fade out of human memory. This desire to be remembered, indeed a very human one, seems to be why Margery is not averse to bad publicity. Her persecution and ostracization authorized the writing of her pseudo-hagiography, allowing a claim to minor martyrdom, which translates into a kind of minor sanctity. She doesn't mind getting arrested, preached against, and being an all-round social outcast, if that means she is closer to God and closer to fame. Philosophers sometimes say that the goal of mysticism is human transformation. In this video, we've discussed how Margery Kempe transforms herself from an ordinary middle-class laywoman into a cosmopolitan holy woman through mystical experiences. We've talked a lot about how she copies established women mystics and saints, but it's important to remember that, 1. Some identities are learned, and we all learn to be who we want to be by following precedents, and 2. Imitation is not immune to human error. So Margery, stuck in a rather special place between saint, mystic, and heretic, is still very much her own person, and her book is an equally special experiment in the making of a celebrity saint.
Beauty, and you'll find surprising beauty in the most unexpected places.